Marwan Bishara is Al Jazeera's senior political analyst, and he joins us now from London. Marwan, welcome to the programme. As ever, Hamas accepted the terms of a ceasefire more than 2 days ago. The Israelis still haven't responded. Why? Are they just bent on war? What's the deal?
They're certainly buying themselves time because it shouldn't take a week to see that what Hamas agreed to is something that the Israelis and the Americans have basically agreed to before. So the question is a political question, not a question of studying a document. And clearly the Israelis are of two minds. One mind is the one that you've been reporting on, recalling the reservists, issuing the plans, approving the plans for the directly reoccupying the Gaza Strip, transferring its people from the north to the south in preparation to ethnically cleansing Gaza. On the other hand, there is, of course, the domestic pressure, the pressures on the streets, the 300,000 demonstrators only a few days ago, the idea that Israel could guarantee the release of a few, 10 maybe, hostages alive and get involved in some sort of a longer deal plan. Without pressure, Arab pressure on Washington, I think the Israelis will probably go the first scenario. Clearly, Qatar and Egypt have been pushing, apparently pushing hard. I mean, clearly the Qatari and the Egyptian officials have been lobbying Europe and Washington in favor of a ceasefire, but more Arab powers need to get behind them.
So Washington really is the only interlocutor which can make a difference here. But does it have any will? Is Donald Trump too busy with Ukraine right now? Is he too busy also, perhaps some would argue, keeping the Epstein papers off the headlines?
Well, look, to be honest with you, there's definitely a lot on any American president's plate. But America is also complicit in this genocide and will be complicit in Genocide 2.0 that we will see unravel after this weekend if there is no ceasefire. So Washington is not just a third party looking from far. Washington is party to what is going on. It has enabled Israel militarily, financially, diplomatically, and so on and so forth. Second, what we are talking about here is an American proposal. It is Steve Witkoff's proposal. So there isn't much to study. There isn't much to contemplate. It should be a straightforward business of the White House to say, I entrusted my envoy Witkoff with the plan. He presented the plan. The plan has been agreed to. I need to back him. There shouldn't be more confusion than that. And no Ukraine and no trade and no scandals should be in the way to that.
Well, we're still with Al Jazeera senior political analyst Marwan Bishara. Marwan, does this plan, should it go ahead, consign the two-state solution effectively to the wastebasket of history?
This is certainly the latest step of preventing a Palestinian state from ever taking place. And it is a dramatic step, there is no doubt. But this has been going on for a good number of decades, and certainly it has accelerated the last 2 years, and now we are seeing it culminating in this dramatic step. This is now full-fledged apartheid. Before, we were talking about neo-apartheid. Now, with the civilian part of the Israeli government in charge of all of these planning, we are certainly now talking about apartheid. It's no longer talking about the old classic military occupation. Now we're talking about Israelis being in charge of dividing the West Bank into Bandustans, where the powerful Israeli settlements are prosperous, free to move around, and what have you, with their own bypass roads, and the Palestinians being choked, being separated, and basically dissipated into the oblivion. Now, what is also important about this is that this is happening while the genocide goes on in Gaza, because this has been two related issues, Shad. On the one hand, there's a strategic challenge in Gaza, but there is the strategic reward for Israel in the West Bank, meaning as Israel fights Hamas in Gaza, it's swallowing, it's devouring the West Bank. It is preventing a Palestinian state from being established. And that's going to continue to go on, a quiet war against the Palestinians in the West Bank, while the noisy apartheid and noisy genocide goes on in Gaza.
Marwan, we have a lot of countries in the West now recognizing Palestinian statehood. Now, it is far too little too late. It seems like the diplomatic narrative has to change now entirely, and quite often they'll be saying that they're in favor of a two-state solution, as we've been just suggesting. Well, what two states are we talking about here?
Well, we can say two things, and they're not mutually exclusive. This is a little too little too late, but late is better than never, in the sense that it's one thing for Israel to be continuously claiming that it has a right to these disputed territories. It's another thing for the absolute majority of the world states, with the exception of the United States and a couple of their minions, to be recognizing a Palestinian state. That will have all sorts of implications and ramifications in the long term for the struggle of the Palestinians, whether it's to independence or to justice and equality in their homeland within Israel-Palestine, from the river to the sea. So in a sense, more recognition by more countries of the Palestinian state is also a recognition of the Palestinian nationhood, not just statehood. Nationhood in the sense that they have collective rights, whether those collective rights will be realized in an independent state or whether they will be realized in a binational state, but those are enshrined not only in international law, but by the recognition of more and more countries, notably influential Western countries.
Marwan, always a pleasure having your thoughts. Marwan Bishara there joining us from London.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.